Today we're at the Northern Michigan Garden. A lot has changed since we did the last video. Hi, I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings, and today we're going to kind of take you for a two-part tour through this garden. The first part will be the gardens that we've had for 3 years now, and then the second part are going to be new gardens that we've recently planted. So come along with me and let's take a walk through the garden. So in the Northern Michigan Garden, we have a lot of deer pressure. So a lot of things that we're planting, I'm trying to be conscious partially of what deers are going to avoid, but I'm also trying to push the limits a little bit to see what they will and won't touch here in my garden. So up here right up close to the house, we have some beautiful Hacklenicloa all gold grass. And I just love that chartreuse color, how it just gently blows here in the breeze. We've also planted a few Alstroemeria, and they're blooming kind of nicely back there, the reds and the oranges. You are seeing a hosta, and that hosta is untouched, but also notice how close it is up to the front of the house. We did poke some white sun pations in because I just love how those sun pations really add a lot of splash of color, especially up against the blue siding here of the house. Up front, there's a couple of the Mahogany Monster Heuchera, and those are just also added in there for a splash of color, not necessarily so much for flower color, but more so for foliage. Other things that are blooming right now are the White Wands Veronica. They're almost towards the end of their bloom cycle, so we'll go ahead and trim these back probably to about 6 inches or so in hopes that we'll get another flush of flower later on in the summer. Also blooming are some of the Heliopsis. This is the Tuscan Gold, and those are a long blooming perennial. Those bloom pretty much once they start all summer long. They're also a very drought tolerant plant, so that's beautiful as well, because if we miss watering or whatever, they continue to bloom and look nice. Here, the aquapot up front here, the palm is doing well. I was a little concerned if this would be too much sun for it, as somebody had told me that they're more of a part shade palm, but it's holding up really nicely. We've got some of the Super Bells, Great Punch, looking nice. That Dichondra Silver Falls is spilling over and almost to the ground. The Big Leaf Vine is doing exactly what I was hoping it would, kind of trailing and just filling in this container. We've got some of the Steel Blue Angelonia, and then back again some more Great Punch in the back. So this is in more of a part shade location, so some of the annuals that we're using aren't really to their full potential, I don't feel, because they're not getting the amount of sun that they really would prefer to have. Tucked in here behind the chairs, we've got the Daisy May Leucanthemum, and they are doing amazing right now. Look at those 3 beautiful specimens. Again, that white, it just looks really great up against that blue siding. There's a few Corabels down there, or Heuchera, for just some consistent solid color. We've got Salvia that's been trimmed back, not blooming right now. A couple hydrangeas that will be in our next video once they start flowering. But right now, it's those Daisy May that are really showing off. Here's our other planter. And this one too is much like the other one. They're actually equal with what was planted in them. But the funny thing is in this one, it gets a little bit more sun, so we are seeing a little bit more color pop through. The pink you're seeing is the Pink Lemonade Super Bells, some Super Bells yellow, and then again that Great Punch, which is just really stealing the show here in this container. In the ground, we have some Sedum Lemon Coral, which is an annual, but I love that bright chartreuse green color. The Monarda is blooming right now. This is Pardon My Pink. Some more of the Sun Patience and the Bleeding Heart. This has been blooming all summer long in full sun. This is one of the longest blooming perennials here in this garden. There's also some anemone in here, along with some more hydrangeas that aren't blooming yet, so we'll kind of keep you updated when they start to bloom. Another Monarda. This one is the Pardon My Purple, and that one's really looking nice. This little cluster here, this is coneflowers or echinacea, and they are just starting to put on the buds. A few of them are giving us a little bit of color, so those are looking nice. So far though, everything I've shown you, there has not been any notice of the deer that has been bugging any of those plants. So far so good for this particular garden. Let's head up to the front garden and see if we are having just as much luck there with the deer staying away. For those of you who are new to our station, Garden Crossings is a retail garden center located in Zeeland, Michigan. We also are a mail order garden center that ships plants directly to your door. So if any of the plants you're seeing today look of interest, you can order online at gardencrossings.com. As we're heading towards the road, this is a more accessible garden to the deer if they are interested in browsing my garden. And let's take a look to see if we have any evidence of any deer browsing here. Along the driveway, we have the white sun patiens, and they're doing gorgeous. No evidence there at all of any deer browsing. You will find a lot of ornamental grasses in the garden, and these were here when we got it, and this is because these are one of the plants that the deer don't usually touch, are the ornamental grasses. So up here in northern Michigan, a lot of people do use grasses as part of their landscape because it's something they can just reliably plant and not have to worry about any deer issues. In the back here, I've got a trio of arbors, or obelisks actually, for the clematis. Back there, Happy Jack clematis is looking just as happy as ever, and really putting on a beautiful show with those purple blooms. We also have a little shorter one up front here, and this has the Jolly Good clematis. Clematis typically like to be grown in a full sun area, so with this being more of a part shade area, I'm not getting quite the show as if these were in full sun. I also should mention we are in a zone 5 here in Michigan. For those of you who are wondering what the hardiness of these plants are, they are all hardy down to at least zone 5. There's too many plants to mention all the hardiness of each, so that's something you'll have to look up on our website if you are interested. The little yellow flowers you're seeing there are the Rudbeckia, little Goldster, and those are doing pretty nice as well. A few little cat's pajamas down there kind of towards the end of their blooms. They could use a little trimming to get them going blooming again. If you watched the videos from earlier this winter, I had talked about our Lenten rose or hellebore, and the deer had eaten these plants. This is not something deer usually touch. But as you can see, they've come back nicely and are filling out with more foliage. So not that the deer killed them, they just didn't do well this spring after the deer had eaten on them. Some more sun patiens. We kind of like to do the red, white, and blue in different areas here in the garden. So the white are sun patiens with a little bit of red sun patien behind. And then tucked way back there by that water can is some Argyratum artist blue. So that's given us the red, white, and blue. The beautiful chartreuse plant you're seeing is the Aurelia Sun King, and I just love how that adds just that bright splash of color into this garden. Rod also planted a few of the Angelonia Perfectly Pink, so that's kind of given a little bit of upright flair. Although again, if they were in full sun, the plants would be much larger. But it does go to show that you can plant a full sun plant in a part shade area. You just may not see the results that you would see if you were going for that full sun. Little penstemon grass there, the rubrum. Those are always pretty. They add a lot of motion out in the garden. Some salvia, which we wanted those for the hummingbirds, which is a lot of hummingbirds up in this area. So this area of the garden is looking pretty good. Not seeing any deer damage here. As we head into this front garden here, you'll notice the kind of anchors of this garden are the ornamental grasses. Again, I love how they create that motion in the breeze when it's blowing. They also kind of create a nice block from the cottage to the road. Not much of a sound barrier, but at least it's a little bit of blockage there. So some of the things we have going on in this garden. We have the Nemesia. This is a Aromance mulberry. We've got some lemon coral sedum. Vobularia, Snow Princess. A few daisies. Cleome, Senorita Rosalita. Some more daisies, and those are looking pretty good. Tropical Rose, Sun Patiens. I love the foliage on that plant. I think it looks really pretty with the flowers. Now here we may be seeing a little evidence of deer browsing, because I would think we should have a few more flowers going on but to be honest, not bad. Perfect Profusion Salvia there, the pink. In the back is a Cordial Cherry Surefire Begonia. Invincible Garnetta tucked in there. That needs a little bit more growth on it before we can talk much about that one. Again, beautiful, those cordial cherries. I just love that deep dark foliage with those red flowers. Irises are always a great choice. Obviously these bloomed earlier this spring, but the deer don't touch the iris. Got some Pulmonaria there, great deer resistant plant. Some tropical milkweed, hoping that we see some monarch butterflies. Let's go in closer though and check out these Garnettas. Let's see if we're seeing any deer browsing. So as I'm looking at them, I mean, they're not very big yet, but I'm really not seeing any evidence of deer browsing. I do see like some trimming, but I think Rod did that to branch it out. But the plant itself is looking pretty good. Some Diamond Snow Euphorbia. Little Lime Punch. Looks pretty good to me. Spirea Candy Corn. Some daisies. And again, kind of a lot of repeat of what we just saw on that other side, but for the most part, this garden is looking pretty good. The exception is, we're just about to the exception, the petunias. Petunias are not faring quite as well in this garden. These should be a lot fuller. I mean, they're definitely getting adequate sun, that they should be just a loaded mound of color. And this here definitely looks like it may be the choice plant of the deer in this garden. You know what, I'm okay with that. If that's the plant they want to eat, let them, because everything else is looking quite nice. Another plant you see a lot up here in Deer Zone is Coreopsis. And I'm not sure, this is one of the old-fashioned Coreopsis, and you can see it's really kind of taken over in this garden. But this is a plant that when it's flowering, it's just a massive yellow, and the deer don't touch it at all. Nemesia, again, you see some there looking nice. And just look at how that grass blows in the breeze. Some people have asked me what grasses these are. There is some Ravenna grass in here. That's these ones in the middle. They'll get super tall. There is some penstemon grass. And that's just so beautiful as it sways in the breeze. Good night. They're out shooting guns today. Holy cow, that is one thing in this area. People are doing target practice this time of year. So actually, before I finish the gardens that we did over the past 3 years, I'm going to stop and show you here, kind of right in the middle of this video, the new projects that Rod's been working on. So along the side here of the cottage, this was just kind of a dirt path. There were several levels of, I don't know, boards that were being used as kind of like a retaining wall, various bricks. I mean, here's just a small pile of kind of the smorgasbord of bricks that were in here. We tried to recycle and reuse as many as we were able to, but we wanted to just kind of clean this area up a little bit and make it so that it made more sense. So Rod cleared all of the boards and bricks and all the random stuff out of this area and created a composite wood path that leads out to a deck here on the side of the cottage. So just kind of a nice little platform. You can see we got a chair there, so it's a nice little sitting area with the bird feeders and such there. So it's just kind of a nice quiet little area. And our neighbor just had their property surveyed, so we know exactly where the edges of our property and theirs is. And you can see Rod utilized all the way up to the edge of the space. So in addition to this just being kind of a uneven, unlevel area, it also led down to the various gardens below. So we are built here on the edge of a giant hill. It's, I don't know, it's probably a good 30, maybe more foot drop down to the lake. So he created a lot of little retaining walls and such that made sense in this space. And you can see we have it packed full of plants. So I'm actually going to go down to the bottom and show you from the bottom up to talk about the various areas, but I just wanted to kind of give you the top-down view here to start with. When he cleared this area up too, he cut a bunch of little scruffy trees down, and now this path you're seeing is he made himself a nice deer run. So the deer actually kind of just follow the edge here of the property and head straight down to the water. So that being said, we had to be very mindful of choosing plants that would be deer resistant. Although we are testing the limits here with some that we have in here, we did definitely go through the garden center and choose a bunch of deer resistant plants for these garden spaces. I am going to show you this top level here though. There was just about a 12 or so inch planting area, and it's about a 6-inch drop from the deck I'm standing on to that little garden space below. So of course you got to utilize every space you have and put some plants in it. So what he did in this area is he did some heuchera or corbels along with some Hecla grass, pretty much just using this space for foliage, color, and interest. And it was funny when we were talking about what to put in this area, I said, you know, I want the Hecla grass, and he's like, perfect, that's exactly what I was thinking. So it was nice that we, you know, agreed on what was going to go in this space. All right, let's step back here on the deck a little bit more, and there's another little planting space. You might be wondering, why did we put rocks there and not plants? That's a very unlevel-ish area. So he just utilized some of the rocks that were laying around and put them in there. Also too, with the bird feeders up above, there's a lot of bird seed that's going to kind of drop in that area. So if we have to kill off the weeds, that's a better place to do it in those rocks than having weeds growing here between the deck boards. So this little space here is probably about 4 foot wide by maybe 10 foot wide, 4 foot wide by 10 foot long. And the plants he used in this area, he lined the back with Rosa Sharon. It's the Paraplu Violet, and you can see it's got a little flower starting there. These will get probably about 8 foot tall in this part shade area, so just kind of creating a little bit of a border and background to this garden space. Also in this garden space, I know you're seeing a hosta there and you're thinking, Heidi, you're nuts. That's not deer resistant. And we realize that, but we're just putting it there because we do have some hosta around in the various garden beds that the deer have left alone. So we'll see. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we always have something else we can do. But in this bed, there is some corbels. It looks like he used some citron, perhaps, or it might even be the Primo Pistachio. I bet that's what it is. That nice lime green color. Pulmonaria, Pinkablu, some Mahogany Monster. You can kind of see, just kind of repeated the various different plants in the space. Up there on the end is a Bernera. So a lot of spring color as far as flowers, but for the rest of the summer, foliage, and then once those Rosa Sharon start blooming, that'll be pretty with the summer flowers. In this little area here, it's kind of downward facing towards that window well, which we had to figure out, you know, for drainage, what to do there. So we did leave some rocks behind the air conditioner just to let the water drain into that space. And again, he kind of repeated the same plants on this side as he did on the other, just to create some consistency in the space and in the look. All right, let's head down to the bottom and take a look bottom up. As we come around the corner, you're gonna kind of get a sense of the hill that we had to deal with when we were planting. So the spaces in here are very tight, the areas I'm walking in, and I have to be careful because obviously there's huge drops from space to space. But if you can see here, kind of the extent of the hill and the ravine that we had to build up and shore back so that we wouldn't have erosion issues in this side of the house. So we built, by we I mean Rod and the boys built several retaining walls just to hold the dirt back, created little platforms to plant into, and worked his way down with more and more plants. So in this first section here, I'm going to try to kind of back up a little bit so my shadow's not in the way. This little space here, it's about 6 foot by about 6 foot, but then you can see it's kind of a triangular shape, so it's not a true 6 by 6 square, but it's more of a 6 by 6 rectangle. In this area here, he planted the dark foliage you're seeing. That's the Astilbe Dark Side of the Moon. So really great dark foliage just to kind of break some of that green up. There's some Bergina in there, Miss Piggy, so that will be spring color. The yellows you're seeing, those are the Tuscan Gold Heliopsis. There's some creeping phlox right along the edge there of the wall, so that'll be spring color. And then he did tuck a few of the white sun patience in just to give us some color while these perennials here are starting to get established. Along the house, you can see there's a little bit of the foundation or the patio that we built this room onto. So he left a little gap there. It's about 8 inches, and he planted a row of white sun patience. So that will just kind of border in the bed, and you can see the next level up. He also put a few white sun patience in there. And again, that's just to kind of border this bed in. White sun patience are great because they really obviously pop against the blue of the siding of the house here, but they also are beautiful at night. They really glow in the night. So this level here, let's go take a closer look at the plants that are in this area here. Step around these other ones. So there's a lot of astilbe in here. The Vision series are the ones that you're seeing there blooming. There's a bleeding heart in front of that butterfly. Up here closer to the wall, you'll see some balloon flowers. A Jacob's Ladder that's not blooming right there, kind of in the middle of the screen. Along the back there, boy, that one's kind of a mystery to me. Oh, you know, I don't even know what that is. It's a plant we found at a garden center. I thought it was cool when it was blooming. So that's kind of a mystery plant there, right there along the wall. Next is a coneflower, and I'll be curious to see how the coneflower does. It is 5:30 right now, and we're just starting to get sun in this area. So it's only getting sun from about 5 or so until sundown. So really not probably the best what we call part shade area. It's more part shade to full shade. So we'll see how some of these sun-loving plants do. But again, like I said, we wanted to choose plants that tend to be a little bit more on the deer-resistant side of things. We have some penstemon here. This is, I believe it's called Cherry Sparks. Really a beautiful kind of a reddish pink. Most of the plants that are in here won't get much taller than about 18 inches or so, with the exception of that beautiful blue flower there in the back. That's Delphinium, and that one will probably get about 3 if not 4 foot tall. So I love Delphinium. I think they're such a beautiful plant when they're in bloom. I might have to get a tomato cage to put around that to kind of stake it up. Otherwise, maybe it'll lean against the wall as well because they do get so tall. All right, I'm going to step up into the garden next and show you here what's at this level. So this level here is pretty much the first level we had seen when we were looking from the top down. Every one of these retaining walls are about 4.5 foot tall as they drop, and then there's a 3 foot and a 2 foot and just various heights of walls to get us to the different levels we want it to be. You can see this one here, it's right under a bedroom window, so we didn't want to go taller than the bedroom window, so we got just underneath of it, and then the next level is just at the base of the cottage. So that's what we were doing when we were building the walls. Anyhow, back to the plants. So in this area, we have along the very back there, you're seeing some dark, big foliage plants. That's Ligularia Britt Marie Crawford. So those will get pretty big and be kind of a nice background plant there. Also, there's some balloon flowers in this garden, astilbes, Jacob's Ladder. There is some heuchera, just to give us some foliage color. Beautiful Bernera, which is a great plant for spring flowers. Pulmonaria, bleeding hearts. We even have, what's that, Heucherella over there, Tiarella. Beautiful variegated Jacob's Ladder. So kind of he picked about 10 plants or so and just kind of sporadically placed them throughout in this garden. Now, obviously, we want to take height into consideration because depending on where you're seeing it, the different heights may cover one plant or the other. So he did go taller in the back, working his way forward with shorter plants. But you got to remember, too, this garden is also going to be seen from the top down. So although height's important, it's not super important because we'll be looking at it from the top up there, as well as from some of these windows that are up there at the second level. So kind of really it's going to be a pretty top-down garden as well. Along the edge, he planted some poppies are there to kind of hold the slope. And then as we go down further, he's transitioned into ajuga. So last year, maybe it's even been 2 years ago now, I lose track of time, he did this beautiful ajuga planting here. It's about a 20-foot planting of various of the feathered Friends ajuga, You can just see what a beautiful mat of color. It's filling in super nice. It's a deer resistant plant, but funny enough, the deer were eating it this winter. So it's come back great. It was gnawed down to the ground, but you can see it's filled out really beautifully here over the summer. So he's just kind of continued that ajuga up and along to hold the bank back. Ajuga can be an aggressive ground cover that will fill in, and that's what we want. Right plant, right place, right? And so this is going to be the perfect plant for this place as it just continues to grow and creep and hold this garden bed kind of in place and hold this huge, huge steep hill in place as well. The sand, the dirt here is really sandy, so it's super light. When we get a rain, it just kind of washes down. So this is going to hold this bank back really great. Okay, let's go back and take a look at the existing gardens. Hopefully these new little spaces are inspirational. I mean, they're just little spaces, so I think it's something that maybe if you yourself are looking to plant a deer resistant part shade garden, it's a space that you could perhaps easily duplicate. So for those of you who've been following the Up North Garden Progress, or the Northern Michigan Garden, I kind of call it both, this garden bed here has been here now for 3 years and is filling in beautifully. Yes, we still have this space here that we're trying to figure out what we're going to do with, but we have a plan in place. We will be building a deck in this area to cover up all that dirt. So that's the plan, and hopefully that happens this summer. It's on the agenda. So what's in this garden space here? So we have it lined with the Sun Patience White, and they are doing fabulous here. They're just really creating a beautiful pop of color and just creating a massive solid mass there, just outlining this garden beautifully. Some of the other annuals we have in this bed, we have some more Sun Patience, this variegated foliage with the tropically rose looking blooms, and they're doing great. We use a lot of Sun Patience because up here we don't have a chance to fertilize super great, so the Sun Patience don't like fertilizer, so they do really great in this space. Tucked along the back wall there is the Surefire Cherry Cordial Begonia. Love that plant. You saw it up in the front garden bed too. Great foliage color, beautiful red blooms. Lime-time coleus tucked in too. So actually, let's get a better view of this. Right up against this wall, he planted kind of every other, that lime-time coleus with the begonias. And that looked really great before these hydrangeas started to fill in, where now they're starting to get covered a little bit. But remember again, a lot of these gardens we're looking at from the top down. So even though from this space we're not seeing it very well because it's covered by other plants, from up high as we're looking into this space, it's gorgeous. And we're seeing all these beautiful colors. All right, so Rod was in vacation mode, as he should have been. So he didn't get in and get weeding done in this space. But you know what? You need to chill as well as take time to chill. Gardens will always be here waiting for you, right? So what are we seeing in this space? It's getting very filled in, so it's kind of hard to walk around. We have the beautiful mini Mauvette hydrangeas, and they are looking fabulous. Behind them, we have the Bobo hydrangeas, and those will probably be blooming in a month. Bobo will get about 3 to 4 foot tall in this space, so ideally the Bobo will be nestled just taller than these mini Mauvettes as they get matured. Also in this space, we have a bunch of the Pugster butterfly bush. I see buds on them, no flowers yet, but there's going to be beautiful bright blue blooms from the Pugster butterfly bush probably in the next couple weeks or so. So those are all lined along the front by those white Sun Patience as well. Also tucked in this space are some Heuchera or corbels, and that's just because we want some consistent color, and those corbels are always giving you some consistent solid color. We also did a really pretty drift of coneflower. They're just starting to bloom. You can see a few little blooms here and there, and that just kind of like waves its way through this garden bed from one side to the other. So those, yeah, a couple more weeks, those will be looking great. Right now, man, these hydrangeas are spot on. The other thing that's spot on right now are these luminary phlox. They are absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to pop the name up on the screen because I'm having a little mind block of what the color is. But man, the pink and the airiness of them is simply stunning. As we head back here into the corner more, again, we're walking through some cone flowers. There's some Monarda. The Monarda's pretty much done blooming. You want to make sure you're staggering your color when you're doing gardens. In the back here, we have some double play doozy, spirea, deer resistant shrub, and they're just starting to bloom. And we kind of have them on the corner there, kind of to create, in my head ideally, a roadblock so that if the deer try to get in here, they won't. Because the first things they'll come across are not appealing to them. Who knows? You do what you think might work and you see if it does. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And then as we continue to head back into the corner here, we have Rod planted some Asclepias in there for the monarch butterflies, but then we also have another Rosa Sharon right there, which it's not getting so big, and I think it's because it's not getting enough sun. But again, Rosa Sharon tend to be a deer resistant plant. So we poked one of those right there. So as that continues to grow, that should fill in that full space. So no longer will that be an entry point into this garden. Time will tell and we'll see, but that is the thought there with that Rosa Sharon. All right, we'll turn this around so you can see some of the color. So yeah, this garden pretty much we would say are Bobo hydrangeas, mini mauvettes, Pugster blues as far as the shrubs, along with a double play doozy spirea. And then, of course, the Rosa Sharon. Perennials in this bed are Monarda, phlox, coneflower, a few corbels, and then some creeping phlox for the early spring color. So yeah, this is looking good. By next year, we probably won't need to use the petunias because if you can see how stringy they look and just kind of, I mean, there's color there, but they're not looking their happiest. And that's because they're not fed. If we were fertilizing these guys, they would be so much nicer looking. But that's just a result of not feeding your petunias. If yours look like that, it's high time to get some fertilizer on them and they will thank you for it. All right, we're gonna cross over the driveway and check out the very last garden. So far with the gardens we've been in, we have not seen any deer issues. That's a lot of gardens and not a lot of deer issues, but never fear, the deer have been here. So I'll show you a couple plants that the deer have been munching on as we go through these tiered garden beds. So we've got a hosta back there. That one's living its best life, looking pretty good. It's an old hosta, I don't even know what it's called, but it's doing well. There's Carl Forester grass up against the back of the wall there. I love those plants. Just how they have so much motion as they sway in the breeze. It just really gives the garden kind of a, maybe we could say a beachy feel, which it is, even though we're not at the beach. But yeah, just looking at that reminds me of dune grass as it just sways in the breeze. Plants that we have here are some hydrangea Little Lime Punch. In this garden bed, I believe this is in its second year. So these plants are, you know, fairly new. So we have 3 of the Little Lime Punch planted in here, not blooming yet. But those are going to get pretty big. So those are going to be kind of like an anchor or foundation plant in this garden. In front of them, we have the Let's Dance Can Do hydrangeas, and they're doing great. Look at all those buds. The flowers are coming. They are doing really nicely. We've got some salvia that need to get trimmed back. And then lining this border, Rod just recently planted a bunch more of the Paint the Town dianthus because we've been so impressed with how those have been doing at the greenhouse that we wanted to add some more of those in here. So obviously their very first bloom is a solid mass of color, but look at the color we're getting here it's July right now. Look at the color we're getting in July. That's beautiful color for secondary blooms on this plant. So that's definitely a plant that if you're looking for something that's going to reward you with not only a beautiful initial bloom, but blooms throughout the summer, that is pretty impressive. Nemesia, Air Romance Mulberry, doing good. But here we have it, a hosta that's having deer issues. So what do you look for when you're looking for deer issues? Right there. Funny thing is though, he's only munched off, or she's only munched off a couple of the flowers because there's a few more there and the leaves haven't been touched. So obviously we know the deer have been around and they've been doing a little munching, but the severity of it I would call minute. If that's all they've taken, that's great. So let's go in and take a look at the rest of the flowers in this bed. We have the Monarda, Pardon My Cerise, Beautiful, beautiful color Monarda, I think. Some daylilies here. They've got their buds on them. Not blooming quite yet. Moving through, we've got some anemone. Lavender that's doing great. Some more, I think that's Pardon My Rose over yonder, Monarda. Some hostas, those are looking pretty clean. But here we go, I found some more issues of deer. It's the phlox. So here we have the Luminary Ultraviolet phlox. And if we go in closer, you can see nibble marks. Nibble marks. Why these have been a plant of choice, who knows? But I can tell that they have been munching on these as well. So we'll continue to watch them and see how they do. They're putting on new growth. I mean, we can clearly see new growth coming, so that's encouraging. So hopefully they will still bloom this summer. Oh, also a Ligularia, look at there. Ligularia bottle rocket. All right, we're gonna step down. I'm gonna get off the ledge here and show you more gardens down below. Standing on the grass level right now to kind of show you this bottom section of the garden. We lined the drive with the Nemesia, and they're doing pretty good there. They get sun probably about noon all the way until sunset, and I love that new Nemesia. It was new last, actually no, I did a trial last year, so this is the first year that they've been available for purchase, and it's the Aromance Mulberry. I talk a lot about it. Got some Alstroemeria there blooming. This Clematis Stand By Me. We really don't have anything for it to climb because it's not a clinging clematis, and I didn't put a trellis or anything to hold it. So it's just kind of meandering through the grass and on the kind of just finding its way through the garden. Right plant, right place, right? Sedum. Oh, here we have Drops of Jupiter. We're gonna have to watch that one. That one likes to spread, but great, great foliage. Beautiful, beautiful chartreuse green. Geranium Roseanne, loving it here. So in this garden bed, obviously we wanted to kind of have the red, white, and blue feel because it is planted underneath of a flagpole. So the annuals we used were the white sun patience along with the red sun patience. And then we did do some annual salvia in there. I believe that's Rockin' Playing the Blues. The blue is a little hard to see from a distance. So I said to Rod, for next year, there's also some argyratum in there. But for next year, what I want to do is get more of this Geranium Roseanne and plant it at the far end of this bed. So kind of filling in this corner as well. We have some geranium in there, but it's not Roseanne and it's purple. So I thought it would be cool to fill in that with Geranium Roseanne just to kind of have a consistent red, white, and blue look all under this flagpole. Some of the other plants we have in the back corner there is a hosta that has some deer chew on it. Definitely seeing evidence of there. Some coleus, more Monarda. Beautiful hollyhock blooming. It's a gorgeous one. There's also phlox in this bed that does look like it also is getting a little bit of chewed on. I'd poke some annuals in. Some Veronica just behind the flagpole. It's more of a rosy purple, but that again going along with that red, white, and blue theme. More Monarda and some lupin. Looks like there's a Agastache they're trying to bloom. And then behind it is the Azuri, I think it's called the Azuri Snow Salvia, which could be deadheaded. And then we'll get some more blooms going on. Trying to remember all these plants is tricky. So many to remember. So yeah, so this is kind of the bottom level of the red, white, and blue garden, and it's really starting to fill out nice and really has some good pops of color, especially from a distance. All right, one more bed and we are done. We're gonna head on over to the butterfly bed. This area is so simple and so stunning, especially now that these hydrangeas are blooming. This bed has the hydrangeas, which are kind of the main focal plants, but it's loaded with Asclepias. There's Asclepias tuberosa, which is orange, Asclepias hello yellow, which is yellow, and then we also put some tropical Asclepias along the back wall, which is a little bit taller, because tropical usually produces more foliage, although not this year in this case, but usually it produces more foliage, which is more food for the caterpillars. But our tuberosa and our Hello Yellow are doing fabulous this year and are really filling out nicely. So there's a lot of foliage on there for those monarchs when they find this little garden. We got some dill and fennel also, hoping to find some black swallowtails in our garden. So far, we haven't found any. There are spice bush swallowtails in this area though, so we have seen those. But yeah, the hydrangeas, they are just so gorgeous. And I love this color combination. That pink, the yellow, and the orange together, I think is so stunning. We have the bleeding heart, and that's doing good in this space. There's a few of those tucked in along the border. Some parsley, which again is for the swallowtails. Some Lobellaria Snow Princess. A few heuchera, which gives us that color before everything else is really shining bright. At last rose, that's what we're seeing right here. It's not getting enough sun though, so it's really not doing a whole lot. Pulmonaria, Allium Millennium, a hosta, and look at there, no deer damage, crazy as it is. And then tucked in the back there is again some more of the Asclepias. Before we head back and take a look though, bottom up, let's check out the Ajuga. And it is doing fabulous. So you can just see all of the various colors going on. I believe there's about 6 or 7 different varieties that we have planted along this hillside. And obviously that yellow is really making the best impact and best statement. But this was so pretty this spring. It had purple flowers on it. And now it's led way to the beautiful foliage of the feathered Friends Ajuga. I would love to know what some of the favorite plants are that you saw in these gardens. Also, if you have deer in your garden, I'd love to hear about it and what plants work best for you. I know your plants and my plants may be different. Our deer all have different palates, but it's always fun to share what works and what doesn't with gardening. So if you have any tips or tricks that you do for your deer or plants that they just do not like, leave them in the comments below. I'm sure other people watching would value your input. Thank you for watching. We were pretty fortunate to not see a lot of deer damage, so I'm counting that as being lucky, not because everything was planted properly and we chose the right plants. Because even though plants are labeled deer resistant, that does not always mean that they're deer proof. If deer are hungry, they're going to eat anything they want. If you're new to our station, we invite you to subscribe on YouTube. Thanks for watching. I'm Heidi from Garden Crossings.